Ancient temples guard more than just prayers and altars. Beneath their worn steps and towering pillars lie entire hidden worlds, sealed away for centuries. This is a journey into the earth, across continents and through time, to uncover 25 of the most mysterious structures ever found underneath sacred sites. You will discover secret cities that sheltered thousands, rivers of the dead flowing under pyramids, and vaults so sensitive they may never be fully explored. What forgotten purpose did a labyrinth of 3,000 rooms serve? Why would builders bury complete temples underground as offerings? By the end, you will see these familiar monuments in a completely new light, understanding that their greatest secrets were always meant to be buried. What do you think drives us to build our most sacred places directly over such profound and hidden depths? Our first stop begins with a name that echoes through history, a word that has become synonymous with impossible complexity: the labyrinth. For thousands of years, the writings of the Greek historian Herodotus described a colossal wonder in Egypt, south of the Great Pyramids. He claimed it was a structure so vast, so bewildering in its design, that it surpassed even the pyramids themselves. He wrote of 12 roofed courts, 3,000 rooms divided between 2 levels, and corridors that twisted and turned so that no one could find their way without a guide. For centuries, scholars dismissed this as an exaggerated traveler's tale, a myth. The site at Hawara, marked by the crumbling mud-brick pyramid of the pharaoh Amenemhat III, seemed too modest to hide such a marvel. The truth, however, was not lost. It was simply buried. Modern technology finally pierced the veil. Using ground-penetrating radar, a team of archaeologists scanned the desert floor around the Hawara pyramid. The scans revealed not empty sand, but the ghostly, geometric outlines of walls, a sprawling grid of foundations stretching out in every direction. Herodotus was not telling a story. He was reporting a fact. Beneath that plain lies one of the largest subterranean structures ever conceived by ancient hands, a literal labyrinth of over 3,000 chambers. But what was its purpose? A pyramid is a tomb, a statement of power aimed at the heavens. This labyrinth, lying flat and hidden, served a different master. Some believe it was the ultimate administrative center, a buried city of bureaucracy designed to manage the pharaoh's vast estate and the complex rituals of his cult for eternity. Others propose a more somber function, a collective tomb not just for the king, but for his entire court, his family, and his sacred animals, a subterranean city of the dead to accompany him into the afterlife. The most compelling theory connects it to the pharaoh's divine role. Amenemhat III was deeply associated with the god of the underworld, Osiris. This labyrinth, with its endless, confusing passages, may have been a physical map of the perilous journey through the Duat, the Egyptian underworld. It was a place where priests could perform rituals that symbolically navigated these dangers, ensuring the king's safe passage to immortality. It was not a maze to be solved, but a sacred, terrifying landscape to be ritually traversed. Yet this incredible discovery presents a profound modern dilemma. The same feature that may have symbolized its purpose now threatens its exploration: water. The water table in this region has risen dramatically since ancient times. The labyrinth, built below ground level, is now flooded. Excavation would mean constant, expensive pumping and the risk of causing the fragile, waterlogged walls to collapse. So we are left with a haunting reality. We have confirmed one of history's greatest architectural legends lies beneath our feet, a monument to ambition and belief. We can map its shadow, but its chambers remain filled with dark water, its artifacts and inscriptions locked away, preserving their secrets for perhaps another age. This sets the stage for our entire exploration, a pattern of brilliant discovery forever tempered by the Earth's stubborn refusal to give up its deepest mysteries. While water guards the Egyptian labyrinth, another kind of barrier protects a hidden world beneath the very heart of Christianity. Directly under the soaring dome of St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City lies a secret city of the dead, known as the Vatican Necropolis, or simply the Scavi, meaning the excavations. This is not a single chamber, but an entire preserved Roman street of tombs, a silent neighborhood frozen in time from the 1st and 2nd centuries. When the original St. Peter's was constructed in the 4th century, builders leveled a hillside and paved right over this pagan cemetery to create a foundation for their new church. They did not destroy the tombs. They simply buried them, entombing one city of the dead to raise a temple for the living. For over 1,000 years, the necropolis slept, forgotten beneath marble and prayer, until a routine repair in the 1940s led to a staggering discovery. Workers beneath the basilica's floor broke into a beautifully decorated wall, revealing a row of ancient Roman mausoleums, their colorful frescoes and intricate stucco work miraculously intact. The Vatican launched a secret, decades-long archaeological project, carefully excavating this buried street. What they found was a snapshot of pre-Christian Rome. Wealthy families built these small, house-like tombs, adorned with images of gods, goddesses, and scenes of daily life, filled with urns containing the ashes of the deceased. But as the archaeologists moved closer to the spot directly beneath the high altar, the atmosphere of the necropolis changed. The pagan imagery faded, replaced by simple, hopeful symbols scratched into the walls: a fish, a shepherd, prayers etched in Greek. This was evidence of a profound transformation, a sign that the earliest Christians who could not build their own cemeteries were secretly burying their dead here, near a site they held in utmost reverence. Tradition had always held that St. Peter was martyred in Nero's circus nearby and buried in a humble grave on this Vatican hill. The archaeological trails seemed to lead right to that spot. Beneath a small monument built by the Emperor Constantine, they found a simple, 1st century grave, empty but surrounded by a protective wall covered in those early Christian markings. In a niche in that wall, workers discovered a collection of bones. After years of study, Pope Paul VI announced in 1968 that the bones of an elderly, robust man, found wrapped in precious purple cloth, had been identified with reasonable certainty as those of the Apostle Peter. This claim remains one of the most sensitive in archaeology, impossible to ever fully prove or disprove with science alone, as it rests on faith and circumstantial evidence. That is why access to the Scavi is so tightly controlled. Only a few hundred visitors are allowed down each week, led on silent, single-file tours that feel more like a pilgrimage than a museum visit. You walk the original Roman pavement, past the pagan mosaics of Hercules and the sun god, and finally stand in the cramped, powerful space before the simple grave. The air is still. The debate is quiet but eternal. Is this the physical proof of Christianity's foundation, or is it the ultimate expression of faith built upon a powerful tradition? The necropolis offers no definitive answer, only layers of history, one civilization literally supporting the next, with a mystery of faith resting at its very core. That profound intersection of faith and archaeology stands in stark contrast to a mystery born purely from engineering and ambition. The Great Pyramid of Giza has fascinated the world for millennia, a geometric mountain of stone that seems to hold its secrets with absolute finality. For centuries, we believed we had mapped its interior completely. The descending and ascending passages leading to the king's chamber and the so-called queen's chamber. But the pyramid has been quietly guarding empty spaces in its heart. In 2017, an international team of scientists working on the Scan Pyramids project made a revolutionary announcement. They were not using shovels or cameras, but cosmic rays. By deploying a technique called muon radiography, which essentially uses high-energy particles from space to see through stone like a medical X-ray sees through flesh, they detected two major anomalies. The first and most dramatic is called the Big Void. This is a cavernous space, at least 100 feet long, located directly above the Grand Gallery, the magnificent corbelled passage that leads to the king's chamber. Its size and placement are baffling. It is not a small construction gap, it is a deliberate, monumental emptiness. The second is a smaller, corridor-shaped void located just behind the distinctive chevron-shaped stone blocks on the pyramid's north face. These discoveries sent shockwaves through the archaeological community. They proved, beyond any doubt, that the most studied building on Earth still has fundamental secrets. The immediate question is, of course, what are they for? The leading theory for the Big Void is that it is a structural relief chamber. Building the Grand Gallery, with its towering corbelled ceiling, would have placed immense weight and stress on the structure below. The void may have been a clever architectural trick, a giant cushion of empty space designed to redistribute that crushing weight and prevent the ceiling of the gallery from collapsing during construction and for eternity. But its perfect alignment and sheer scale invite more tantalizing ideas. Could it be a second, undiscovered burial chamber, perhaps intended for Khufu but never used? Could it be a sealed ritual space, a kind of celestial anteroom for the pharaoh's soul, filled with artifacts we can scarcely imagine? The smaller northern void, hidden behind those elegant chevrons, might be a construction corridor, a forgotten ramp used to move the massive blocking stones into place to seal the pyramid from the inside. Or those chevrons themselves might be an architectural marker, a grand sign saying something important lies behind here. The frustration is palpable. We know these voids exist, we can estimate their size and shape, but we cannot reach them. The stone separating us is many feet thick, and any invasive drilling could cause catastrophic damage to the pyramid's integrity. The future of this mystery likely lies in even more sophisticated, non-invasive technology, and perhaps in the slender, nimble form of robots. The next step for explorers is to design a device small enough to thread through an existing tiny joint in the stone, equipped with a fiber optic camera that could peer into the darkness of a chamber untouched for 4,500 years. Imagine that moment, a light piercing a perfect blackness that has lasted since the age of the pharaohs, revealing either a dusty, empty space that solves an engineering puzzle or something that rewrites history itself. The Great Pyramid, a symbol of ancient certainty, now holds at its core a very modern lesson that our greatest wonders are never fully known, and that the final chapter of their story may still be waiting silently in the dark. The silent, sealed voids of the Great Pyramid represent a mystery of emptiness, but our next discovery reveals a hidden world built for the clamor of life. In the stark, beautiful landscape of Cappadocia, Turkey, a simple stone church from the Byzantine era stands unassuming on the surface. Its true significance, however, lies not in its modest sanctuary, but in the inconspicuous hole in its floor. This was the secret entrance to Derinkuyu, an entire subterranean city carved 8 levels deep into the soft volcanic rock, a labyrinth not for the dead, but for the living in desperate times. The connection between surface temple and underground refuge was deliberate and ingenious. Invading armies sweeping across the plains would see only a small, vulnerable village and a simple church. They would have no idea that beneath their feet, an entire population could vanish, pulling ladders up behind them and rolling massive circular stone doors across the entrances. These doors, shaped like millstones, could be secured from the inside, making each level a defensible fortress. Derinkuyu was not a single hideout. It was a fully functional underground metropolis, capable of sheltering up to 20,000 people for months at a time. Engineers carved out a staggering network of living quarters, stables for livestock, communal kitchens, wine and oil presses, and even dedicated chapels for worship. Most astonishing are the 55-meter deep ventilation shafts that provided fresh air to even the lowest levels, and the sophisticated water wells that were secured from contamination by the surface. This was not a temporary bolt hole. It was a planned civilization in reverse, built downward. Its purpose was born from relentless necessity. Over centuries, the region faced wave after wave of conflict, from Arab raids to Mongol invasions and later periods of religious persecution. Derinkuyu and the many other underground cities linked to it by miles of tunnels offered a sanctuary where communities could preserve their way of life, their faith, and their very survival. The church above was both a spiritual anchor and the perfect camouflage, a testament to a profound and pragmatic truth. For these communities, faith was not just expressed in prayer, but in the incredible, back-breaking labor of carving out a hidden world, ensuring that even when the surface was stripped away by conquest, their community would endure in the quiet, breathable dark below. From a hidden city carved for survival, we traveled to a temple built for glory, only to find its greatest strength lay in what was hidden below the marsh. The Temple of Artemis at Ephesus was a legend in its own time, a marble masterpiece so immense and dazzling it was named one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Pilgrims across the Mediterranean journeyed to see its 127 columns, its statues by the greatest sculptors, and its sacred statue of the goddess Artemis, adorned with symbols of fertility and wild nature. Yet for all its soaring beauty, the temple's true secret was its battle with the very ground it stood upon. The site was sacred long before the grand marble edifice, a place of worship for a mother goddess that the Greeks later associated with Artemis. But this ground was perilously marshy, soft and unstable, a terrible foundation for a monument meant to last eternity. Ancient engineers faced an epic challenge. Their solution was as brilliant as it was hidden. Archaeologists excavating the site have discovered that the builders did not simply lay a stone platform. They created an entire subterranean foundation, a grid of channels and compartments filled with layers of charcoal and packed sand. This acted as a shock absorber, a flexible raft that could shift and settle with the wet, unstable soil without cracking the magnificent marble columns above. It was a masterwork of ancient hydro-engineering, a sunken labyrinth of stone designed to fight water and earth. But in the ancient mind, engineering and ritual were never far apart. These dark, water-filled channels beneath the temple floor began to feed the realm of myth. The goddess Artemis of Ephesus was a complex figure, a mistress of wild beasts but also a protector of cities and childbirth. Some scholars believe her worship here retained echoes of older chthonic deities, gods of the earth and the underworld. Could those necessary drainage channels have taken on a sacred purpose? It is possible that rituals for Artemis involved offerings poured into the earth through shafts, connecting the glorious temple above with the dark, watery depth below. The temple's famed treasure vaults, mentioned by ancient writers, might have been secured within these foundational layers, protected by both engineering and spiritual dread. The marshy ground was not just a problem to solve, it became part of the temple's divine character, linking the goddess to the fertile, mysterious powers of the underworld. So the greatest wonder of Ephesus may have been a duality, a sun-white temple of logic and proportion floating serenely above a dark, wet and spiritually charged foundation, a perfect marriage of human ingenuity and ancient belief, where the gods of the earth literally supported the gods of the sky. Yet the idea of harnessing earthly power reaches its most dramatic expression far across the ocean, beneath a different sun. The Pyramid of the Sun at Teotihuacan in Mexico is a mountain of human effort, a colossal earthen core faced with stone that dominates the ancient city's central avenue. For centuries, it was understood as a solid mass, a monument built upward toward the heavens. That understanding shattered in the 1970s quite by accident. Workers installing a sound and light system for tourists around the pyramid's base broke through a wall and into a void. What they discovered was not a small chamber, but a natural cave system and a long, man-made tunnel that ran directly beneath the pyramid's center, aligning perfectly with its east-west axis. This was no coincidence. The builders of Teotihuacan, a mysterious people whose name and language are lost to us, had deliberately constructed their greatest pyramid over this subterranean landscape. In Mesoamerican belief, caves and tunnels were sacred portals to the underworld, known as Xikunamictlan. This was not a place of eternal punishment, but a dangerous, layered realm through which the souls of the dead had to travel, facing trials before reaching their final rest. The natural cave beneath the pyramid was seen as a direct conduit to this spiritual plane, a place of immense generative power where life, death, and creation intersected. By building the Pyramid of the Sun directly over it, the Teotihuacanos were literally anchoring their world to the source of cosmic energy. Excavations of the tunnel revealed this was not just a symbolic gesture. Archaeologists found a trove of ritual offerings left in the darkness, fragments of pottery, obsidian blades, and the remains of sacred animals. The tunnel itself seems to have been designed for ceremonial processions, a path for priests to descend symbolically into the underworld to commune with the forces of creation and ancestors. The pyramid above, then, was not merely a temple to the sun god, but a monumental capstone, a regulator built to control and focus the potent energies flowing from the world below. It was an architectural circuit, connecting the celestial with the chthonic, with human ritual as the conducting wire. This transforms the entire site from a city of the gods into something more profound, a vast spiritual machine engineered into the very flesh of the earth. That profound connection between pyramid and underworld finds its most personal and intricate expression in the tomb of a single king. Deep within the humid jungles of Chiapas, Mexico, the Temple of the Inscriptions at Palenque stands as a masterwork of Maya architecture, a stepped pyramid rising 9 levels high, its facade once covered in hieroglyphs telling the history of the city's divine rulers. For centuries it was admired from the outside, its interior believed to be solid. That changed in 1952, when archaeologist Alberto Ruz-Louis-Lier, after 4 years of meticulous work, removed a stone slab in the temple floor and discovered a hidden stairway, choked with rubble. Clearing it led him 80 feet down into the heart of the pyramid and to the burial chamber of Kinich Janab Pakal, known as Pakal the Great. The sarcophagus lid, with its iconic image of the king falling into the jaws of the underworld, became world famous. But the chamber held another, less celebrated secret. Archaeologists noticed the room was unusually humid, and the stone of the massive sarcophagus showed signs of water exposure. The mystery deepened decades later. In 2016, archaeologist Arnoldo González Cruz, using sonar and endoscopic cameras, made a startling announcement. He proposed that the architects of Palenque had engineered a sophisticated water system directly beneath Pakal's tomb. His team's scans suggested a network of carved channels and a small bell-shaped chamber that appeared to funnel water from a natural spring, guiding it in a deliberate path under the burial chamber before allowing it to drain out the side of the pyramid. This was not a flaw or a leak, but a deliberate, symbolic design. In Maya cosmology, the journey to the afterlife, known as Xibalba, was fraught with challenges, one of the first being the crossing of a river. The most sacred Maya kings were not just buried, they were sent on a ritual voyage. González Cruz argues that this engineered subterranean river was a physical manifestation of that spiritual obstacle. The flowing water beneath the sarcophagus meant that Pakal, in death, was perpetually situated at the moment of crossing, his soul forever engaged in the sacred transition from the world of the living to the realm of the ancestors. The water's sound and presence would have been a constant, tangible reminder of this journey for priests performing rituals in the chamber above. This theory, however, is not without its skeptics. Some archaeologists within the Mesoamerican community question the interpretation of the scan data, suggesting the features could be natural fissures in the bedrock, not carefully carved channels. They argue that while the Maya certainly incorporated water symbolism into their architecture, evidence for a fully functional, engineered river directly under the sarcophagus is not yet conclusive. The debate hinges on a key point. Is this a literal river of the dead, or a powerful metaphorical concept given architectural form through more subtle means? Both sides agree on the core principle. The builders of Palenque went to extraordinary lengths to embed their king's tomb within a landscape of myth. Whether through actual flowing water or the profound symbolism of the chamber's placement, they sought to blur the line between architecture and cosmology, creating a machine for divine passage where stone, water, and belief flowed together into eternity. The debate over Palenque's symbolic river reveals a universal truth that ancient builders often encoded their deepest beliefs in the very foundations of their sacred sites. This principle finds one of its most visually stunning examples in the rose-red city of Petra, carved directly into the cliffs of southern Jordan. Everyone recognizes the iconic facade of Al-Khazna, the treasury with its ornate Hellenistic columns and urn standing proudly against the sheer rock face. For centuries, Bedouin tribes believed that urn at the top held a pharaoh's hidden treasure, and the bullet pockmarks on its surface are testament to generations of hopeful gunfire trying to shatter it open. But the real mystery of the treasury is not on its magnificent exterior. It lies within, and more importantly, beneath it. The interior of the tomb is surprisingly simple, a single square chamber with 3 smaller side rooms. It feels almost austere compared to the theatrical grandeur of the entrance. Yet in the center of this main chamber floor, archaeologists discovered something that reignited centuries of legend, a dark, narrow shaft descending straight down into the bedrock. This was no natural fissure. Its walls were tool-marked, clearly carved by human hands. Where did it lead? Local lore swirled with tales of a hidden treasury room below, a secret vault where the Nabatean kings, masters of the incense trade routes, stored their unimaginable wealth. Other stories suggested it was an escape route or part of a vast, interconnected tunnel network running beneath the entire city of Petra. Modern technology has allowed us to peer into this darkness without descending. Ground-penetrating radar surveys conducted around and under the treasury have confirmed the existence of substantial man-made cavities and tunnels extending deep below the visible structure. These are not just small burial niches, they are organized spaces. This evidence gives powerful weight to the old legends. The Nabateans were brilliant hydraulic engineers, famous for channeling scarce water through a complex system of dams, cisterns, and tunnels to sustain their desert capital. It is entirely plausible that their architectural genius extended into creating subterranean storage facilities, secure from the elements and from prying eyes, or even secret ceremonial spaces linked to their enigmatic religious practices. The shaft in the treasury's floor could have been a ceremonial conduit, a literal connection between the tomb of an important figure and a sacred space below, perhaps used for offerings or rituals meant to bridge the world of the living and the dead. So, while no chests of gold have been hauled up from the depths, the discovery validates a deeper truth. Al-Khazna is not merely a facade, it is a doorway. Its true scale and purpose extend invisibly into the earth, a reminder that in Petra, the most magnificent sights are only half the story, with the other half waiting in the cool, silent dark beneath your feet. The quest for hidden foundations leads us from Petra's carved cliffs to the very birthplace of Western civilization. High atop the Acropolis in Athens, the Parthenon stands as an eternal symbol of reason, beauty, and democratic ideals, its marble columns gleaming against the Aegean sky. Yet beneath this monument to human achievement lies a darker, older, and deeply mysterious underworld. Few tourists who crowd the sacred rock ever see it, for the entrance is sealed and forgotten by most. This is the network of secret crypts, cisterns, and chambers hollowed out beneath the temple's foundations. Ancient sources whisper of a place called the Teotihuacan, a prehistoric labyrinth of walls and tunnels that once enclosed the base of the Acropolis. The name itself comes from the word for stork, perhaps referencing the migratory birds that nested there, but its origins are lost in myth. Some legends claimed it was built by the Pelasgians, an ancient people said to predate the Greeks themselves, using stones so massive that they seemed the work of giants or cyclopes. This labyrinthine enclosure was considered so sacred and ancient that by the classical period of Pericles, it was forbidden to even live within its bounds. The physical evidence for this mythical space has been found in the bewildering basement beneath the Parthenon. Archaeologists have mapped a complex warren of corridors, stairways cut deep into the bedrock, and large rectangular chambers. Some of these features are Mycenaean, dating back over 3,000 years to the Bronze Age, when the Acropolis was a fortified palace complex for a warrior king. A steep, well-worn staircase descends into the darkness, suggesting constant, purposeful traffic over centuries. What was its use? In the Mycenaean era, these tunnels likely served as secure storage, emergency water cisterns, or secret escape routes during a siege, a practical fortification for a hilltop citadel. But as the site transformed from a warlord's fortress to a sanctuary of the goddess Athena, the purpose of these sunken spaces transformed as well. They became part of the sacred landscape, possibly used for initiations, for storing precious votive offerings, or for rituals too secret or powerful to be performed in the open light of day. The layers of history only deepened with time. Centuries later, when Christianity replaced the old gods, these hidden chambers found new life. Some were converted into clandestine chapels or hermit cells, where followers of the new faith could worship in secret, safely removed from the pagan temples above. So the rock of the Acropolis is not a solid pedestal, but a historical layer cake, a Swiss cheese of human endeavor. From Bronze Age fortress to classical temple to Christian refuge, every era found a use for the darkness beneath the glory, proving that even the most celebrated symbols of light have deep roots in the earth's enduring shadow. But perhaps the most startling form of hidden architecture is not a space for the living or the dead, but a perfect object buried whole. In the lush hills of Chongqing, China, the Dazu rock carvings present one of the world's most spectacular galleries of Buddhist art, with thousands of statues and reliefs carved into limestone cliffs between the 9th and 13th centuries. While the towering figures of deities and intricate narrative scenes draw all eyes, a quieter, stranger discovery was made in the soil at the base of these sacred cliffs. Archaeologists excavating around the Baodingshan site unearthed something unprecedented. Not foundations or tunnels, but complete miniature stone pagodas, each one meticulously carved and then deliberately buried in the earth. These were not structural supports. They were fully realized, freestanding works of art, some standing over a meter tall, with detailed roof tiles, eaves, and decorative figures, created only to be hidden from view forever. Their pristine condition, preserved exactly as they were in the Song dynasty, creates a profound paradox, a masterpiece never meant to be seen by human eyes. So what was their purpose? One compelling theory is that they acted as spiritual time capsules, or dharani pillars. In Buddhist practice, burying sacred objects, often inscribed with prayers or sutras, is a meritorious act that perpetuates the teachings and protects a site. These pagodas, as complete architectural models, may have been the ultimate expression of this practice, enshrining the essence of a temple in a form that would endure within the earth itself, sanctifying the ground for eternity. Another interpretation connects to offerings to the earth deities. By burying a perfect replica of a pagoda, the builders were making a permanent, monumental offering to the spirits of the land, seeking their blessing and protection for the magnificent carvings on the cliffs above. The most intricate theory involves the ancient Chinese practice of feng shui or geomancy, the art of harmonizing human structures with the unseen energies of the landscape. The Dazhu site is a complex spiritual ecosystem. Scholars suggest these buried pagodas could have been spiritual anchors, placed at specific geomantic points to balance and stabilize the site's energy flow or to correct perceived spiritual weaknesses in the terrain. They weren't just offerings. They were functional components in a vast, invisible architecture of energy, with the cliff carvings as the visible half and the buried pagodas as the hidden root system. This transforms our understanding of the entire complex. The Dazhu rock carvings are not merely a surface spectacle. They are a holistic spiritual engine where the visible and the invisible, the soaring and the buried, work in concert. The silent, subterranean pagodas remind us that sometimes the most powerful act of faith is to create something beautiful, not for glory, but solely for the earth to hold. Buried beauty for the earth to hold is one thing, but a space contested by heaven. And earth is another. The ancient limestone plateau, known as the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, or the Haram al-Sharif, is the spiritual epicenter for billions, a place where the divine is believed to have touched the world. Its surface is adorned with the glinting dome of the rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque, but its true complexity lies in the labyrinth beneath. For centuries, pilgrims and scholars have whispered of a hidden world under the sacred platform, a warren of chambers, tunnels, and cisterns of staggering scale. Some, like the cavernous vaults called Solomon's Stables, are known and mapped. These massive, arched halls built by Herod the Great to support the expanded temple platform were later used by crusaders to stable their horses, hence the name. But they are just the beginning. Modern, non-invasive surveys using ground-penetrating radar and laser scanning have revealed a far more extensive subterranean landscape. The scans depict a honeycomb of unknown chambers, some vast, and a complex ancient water system including the legendary Great Sea, a cistern capable of holding millions of gallons fed by channels from ages past. This hidden architecture fuels endless speculation. Could these sealed voids hold the lost treasures of Solomon's first temple, plundered by Babylonians but perhaps hidden by priests in a final, desperate act? Jewish tradition speaks of a secret chamber where the Ark of the Covenant was concealed. Others theorize about lost archives from the Second Temple, scrolls that could rewrite religious history. More mystically, ancient texts describe gates to the underworld, or the foundation stone at the heart of the dome of the rock as the literal plug over the watery abyss of creation. Yet exploring these mysteries is perhaps the most delicate archaeological challenge on Earth. The site is not just historically layered, it is a live wire of faith and politics. Any physical excavation is virtually impossible due to its profound sensitivity, as the very ground is sacred to Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. This means the caverns beneath remain a realm of radar ghosts and echoes, their contents protected not by stone alone, but by the weight of millennia of devotion and conflict. The greatest secret they guard may be the fragile peace above, leaving us with scans instead of shovels and theories instead of artifacts, in a place where faith itself is the ultimate, unexcavatable mystery. While faith guards the Temple Mount, another sacred relic required a fortress built into the earth itself. In the heart of Kandy, Sri Lanka, the temple of the sacred tooth relic, or Sri Dalada Maligawa, is the spiritual center of Theravada Buddhism, built to enshrine a single venerated object, a tooth said to belong to the Buddha himself. For over 1600 years, this relic has been the palladium of Sinhalese kingship, its possession legitimizing the ruler's right to govern. Such immense value made it a target for countless invasions, particularly from neighboring South Indian kingdoms. The beautiful temple we see today, with its golden roof and serene lake, is only the surface of a much deeper story of survival. Ancient chronicles like the Mahavamsa and the Kulavamsa are not merely historical records, they are manuals of sacred evasion. They detail a recurring, desperate strategy. Each time invaders approached, the custodians of the tooth would not just hide the relic, they would vanish with it into a prepared labyrinth. These texts speak of secret chambers, tunnels, and even entire underground monastic complexes constructed precisely for this purpose, allowing monks and royalty to disappear for months, preserving both their lives and the sacred object that defined their civilization. The temple's location in Kandy, surrounded by misty hills and jungle, provided the perfect natural canvas for this hidden architecture. Modern preservation work has given tantalizing, physical credence to these ancient tales. During renovations, workers have encountered sealed archways and foundation walls, their original openings bricked up centuries ago. Ground-penetrating radar surveys have indicated large, unexplained voids beneath the main shrine complex, spaces that do not correspond to any known basement or cistern. Local tradition insists that a complete, self-sufficient subterranean monastery exists directly under the main temple, a mirror image sanctuary equipped with meditation halls, living quarters, storage for food and water, and its own shrine room to house the relic during times of siege. This would have been a spiritual lifeboat, a place where the monastic community could continue its rituals and protect the heart of their faith while war raged overhead. The evidence remains suggestive, not conclusive, as the sacred and fragile nature of the site prevents any invasive excavation. Yet the logic is compelling. Why would a culture that faced repeated existential threats not engineer the ultimate safe room? The Temple of the Tooth, therefore, represents a unique duality, a public monument of dazzling devotion that simultaneously serves as a camouflaged entrance to a secret world, a testament to the profound length a civilization will go to ensure that its most sacred light is never extinguished, even if it must burn in the dark. The relentless need to hide a sacred relic finds a strange parallel in a legend not of concealment, but of deliberate, magnificent drowning. In the coastal temple town of Puri, India, the towering spire of the Jagannath Temple rises above a swirling ocean of pilgrims. Here, Lord Jagannath, a form of Krishna, is worshipped alongside his siblings in a famously enigmatic ritual. But local lore insists the true wonder lies not in the temple's heights, but in its unfathomable depths. For generations, priests and residents have spoken of Rathabasa, a sunken palace of unparalleled splendor that lies submerged beneath the temple complex. The stories describe it as a mirror image of the temple above, but built of even more precious materials, a celestial abode that voluntarily sank into the earth or was flooded by the gods to protect it from desecration. This is not a forgotten basement. It is described as a complete, drowned kingdom. Intriguingly, modern science has not entirely dismissed the tale. Geological surveys conducted around the temple have indicated the presence of large, anomalous cavities deep underground, spaces whose size and shape seem inconsistent with natural geology. These findings give a tantalizing, physical form to the centuries of oral tradition. The legend is woven directly into the temple's most public ritual, the annual Rath Yatra, or Chariot Festival. After the deities complete their journey on their colossal chariots, a specific and peculiar ceremony takes place. The massive wooden chariots are ritually washed at a designated site. Local belief holds that this is not just cleaning. It is a symbolic act connected to the submerged palace. The water used is considered sacred because it is linked to the underground reservoir that floods Rathabasa. a ritual acknowledgement of the palace's presence and a way of sharing its sanctity with the world above. This creates a powerful feedback loop between myth and practice. The ritual validates the legend, and the legend gives profound meaning to the ritual. Could Rathabasa be a metaphorical story about the temple's spiritual foundations? Absolutely. Yet, the geological hints of vast man-made voids suggest a more literal interpretation might also be true. Perhaps an earlier, grander temple complex did exist on this site, and a catastrophic shift in the water table or a deliberate flooding for protection led to its abandonment and burial, its memory preserved not as history but as divine myth. The sunken palace remains just beyond reach, a shimmering vision in sacred stories and ambiguous scientific data, reminding us that some truths are held not in evidence, but in the unwavering belief of millions and the silent, water-filled chambers beneath their feet. The shimmering vision of a drowned palace gives way to a mountain carved from solid rock. At the Ellora caves in India, the Kailasa temple is not built, but revealed, a colossal monument to the god Shiva excavated from a cliff face by removing over 200,000 tons of basalt, top down over generations. Its towering pillars, intricate reliefs, and freestanding chariots are a breathtaking testament to what human hands can subtract from stone. But if you descend from its sculpted plinths and peer into the shadowed openings at its base, you enter a far more enigmatic world. Beneath the finished glory lies a second, hidden project, a labyrinth of rough-hewn caves, tunnels, and chambers that plunge deep into the earth, seemingly unfinished and abandoned. These lower levels are not the neat, polished halls of the upper temple. Their walls are jagged, their purpose unclear. Were they intended as additional shrines for lesser deities, silent meditation cells for ascetics seeking utter isolation, or perhaps storerooms for the temple's vast ritual apparatus? The scale of these excavations suggests something far more ambitious. The Kailasa temple is a representation of Mount Kailash, the celestial abode of Shiva in the Himalayas. In Hindu cosmology, the universe is multi-layered with celestial realms above, the earthly plane in the middle, and various underworlds below. The master architects of Ellora may have been constructing a complete cosmic model in stone. The magnificent temple above embodied the sacred mountain and the heavenly realm. The chaotic, deep-cut tunnels beneath could have been a deliberate representation of the netherworld, the Patala, completing a three-dimensional map of the universe. This theory transforms the site from a single temple into a vertical axis of existence. Yet, the work stopped. The tools fell silent. The lower caves were left in a state of raw potential, their ceilings low and uneven. Was the project too vast, its vision exceeding the resources or the lifespan of its patrons? Or was this underworld level intentionally left unfinished, a symbolic acknowledgement that the realms below are formless, dark, and perpetually in a state of creation and dissolution, mirroring Shiva's own role as both destroyer and regenerator? Standing in those lower chambers, you are surrounded not by the perfection of divine art, but by the sweat and ambition of the endeavor itself, a glimpse into a plan so grand it sought to carve the entire cosmos, from peak to abyss, out of a single stubborn hillside. This vertical axis of existence carved from rock finds a dark echo in the very foundations of a modern capital. Far below the bustling streets of Paris, a different kind of underworld labyrinth holds the physical remains of millions. The Paris catacombs are famous for their macabre walls of stacked skulls and femurs, but their origins are deeply tied to the sacred architecture above. This network began not as a tomb, but as a source of life for the city, a vast subterranean quarry. For centuries, workers cut the beautiful limestone blocks that built Notre Dame, the Louvre, and the city's grand churches directly from beneath it. These tunnels left a hollow, unstable shell under entire neighborhoods. Meanwhile, on the surface, The churchyard cemeteries, like the massive one at Les Innocents near the market, became horrifically overcrowded, a public health crisis of putrefaction and disease. The solution was a grim and practical merger of these two underground worlds. Starting in the late 18th century, a nightly procession of black-draped wagons began the silent work of evacuation. Bones were carefully disinterred from the consecrated ground of city cemeteries and transported down into the abandoned quarries, which were then blessed and consecrated as a new, collective ossuary. This created a direct physical link, a sacred recycling where the stone that built the churches above now housed the bones of the parishioners who worshipped in them. But within this empire of the dead, something unexpected happened. A spark of the sacred reignited in the dark. Quarry workers, and later clandestine explorers, began constructing their own strange monuments deep in the silent passages. They built full altars from bones and carved stone, created solemn chapels inside galleries, and inscribed plaques with poems and reflections on mortality. One famous chamber is even named the Tomb of the Pharaoh. These were not official places of worship, but spontaneous, personal acts of reverence built by the living who walked among the dead. They transformed a municipal bone repository into a shadowy, inverted cathedral, a sacred space born not from doctrine, but from the human need to find meaning and ritual in the face of overwhelming silence. The catacombs thus became a paradox, a secular engineering project that evolved into one of the world's most powerfully spiritual environments, a hidden, unofficial temple lying in wait beneath the official ones, all built from the very bones and stone of the city itself. A city's bones are one thing, but its hidden heart is another. In the very center of modern London, beneath the glass and steel towers of the financial district known as the City, construction workers in 1954 made a discovery that stopped time. Digging foundations for a new office block, they broke into a sunken rectangular chamber, its walls still painted with faded figures. They had found the London Mithraeum, a perfectly preserved temple to the soldier god Mithras, buried intact for over 17 centuries. This was no ordinary Roman shrine. Mithraism was a secretive, all-male mystery cult that swept across the Roman Empire, popular especially with soldiers, merchants, and bureaucrats. Its rituals were so guarded that initiates swore blood oaths never to reveal them, and to this day we have no written accounts from members themselves. Everything we know is pieced together from archaeology and the carvings they left behind. The temple's design was not an accident of burial, it was its entire purpose. The chamber was built partially underground, deliberately fashioned to resemble a cave. At its far end, excavators found a stone altar, and before it, something miraculous, a natural spring that bubbled up through the floor, its water channeled into a small, perpetually filled basin. This eternal spring in a man-made cave was the core of the mystery. The central myth of Mithras involved the god capturing and slaying a primeval bull in a cavern, an act from which all life and fertility were said to spring. The temple was a stage for reenacting this cosmic drama. Initiates would descend into this artificial cavern, the sound of trickling water echoing in the dark, to participate in ritual meals and ceremonies that mimicked the slaying. The spring was not just a water source, it was a sacred prop, a symbol of the life-giving force released by Mithras's act. Its constant flow in the darkness made the myth physically present. The temple's location speaks volumes about the cult's need for secrecy and power. It was built near the bank of the now buried River Walbrook, a secluded, damp spot ideal for a cave-like structure, yet also situated within the bustling Roman fort and trading settlement of Londinium. Its members were likely men of rank and influence, conducting their profound rites just steps away from their daily administrative duties. After the fall of Roman Britain and the rise of Christianity, the temple was abandoned, forgotten, and slowly buried by centuries of silt and urban debris. Its survival is a fluke of geography and modern respect. After its discovery caused a public sensation, the entire structure was carefully moved a short distance to allow construction to continue. Decades later, it has been returned to its original site, now preserved in a stunning public display beneath the new Bloomberg building. Visitors descend into a darkened space, with a misty atmosphere and the sound of flowing water recreating the cave's ambience. While the actual ruins are lit before them, it is a rare and powerful experience, standing in a sacred cave built for secrecy, now hidden beneath a temple of modern finance, the eternal spring still flowing, a silent witness to the private gods of an empire's hidden architects. The London Mithraeum's sacred spring connects us to a world where water was not just a symbol, but a living part of ritual. Across the Atlantic, another pyramid holds a different kind of secret within its unusual shape. In the ancient Maya city of Uxmal, the Pyramid of the Magician rises with a startling silhouette, its rounded sides and steep oval base unlike any other structure in the region. Local legend says it was built in a single night by a dwarf king with magical powers. But the truth revealed by archaeology is, in its own way, just as extraordinary. This pyramid is not one building, but 5, each successive temple carefully constructed over the last, like a set of nested stone boxes. As archaeologists carefully tunneled into the heart of the structure, they did not find a single grand tomb, but a series of hidden chambers sealed within these earlier, swallowed phases. To reach them, researchers had to navigate narrow, claustrophobic passages that felt less like corridors and more like the veins of the earth itself. Within these sealed rooms, untouched for over 1,000 years, they discovered not the opulent treasures of a king, but something perhaps more spiritually significant: vast collections of ritual offerings. There were elegant ceramic bowls, jade beads, intricately carved obsidian blades, and the remains of sacred animals. These were not casual deposits. They were deliberate, concentrated acts of devotion placed in a hidden space. So what was the purpose of these secret rooms? One compelling theory connects directly to Maya cosmology. The rounded oval shape of the pyramid is often interpreted as a representation of a womb. The hidden chambers, buried deep within the earth and the structure, could have been seen as the literal womb of the earth, a place of primordial power and creation. Placing offerings here was a way to feed that generative force, to ensure the fertility of the land and the continuity of the cosmos. Another possibility is that these were the final resting places, not of kings, but of the city's most elite priests or oracles, individuals whose power was so tied to the earth and the spirit world that they needed to be interred within it, becoming a permanent part of the pyramid's sacred anatomy. As each new temple was built over the old, these chambers were not looted or destroyed. They were reverently sealed, their occupants and offerings left to sanctify the ever-growing mountain above them. The Pyramid of the Magician, therefore, is a story of accumulation, each layer not erasing the past, but encapsulating it, building power and mystery vertically through time, with its deepest secrets resting in those dark, offered-filled wombs of stone. The wombs of stone in Uxmal speak of a sacred world built inward, but in the stark deserts of Egypt, another faith sought sanctuary by carving directly into the very bones of the earth. The monastery of St. Anthony, nestled against the Red Sea Mountains, holds the title of the world's oldest continuously inhabited Christian monastery. Its whitewashed walls and ancient chapels are impressive, but its true foundation is a hidden city of solitude and survival, carved deep within the mountain itself. The story begins with the man who started it all, Anthony the Great. In the early 4th century, seeking utter separation from the world to devote himself to prayer, Anthony retreated to a remote cave in this very mountain. That cave, now a small chapel accessible by steep climb, became the spiritual nucleus. As followers gathered to be near this living saint, They didn't build a sprawling complex on the surface, at least not at first. Instead, they began to excavate. Beneath the later medieval walls and towers lies an extensive, multi-level labyrinth of tunnels, cells, and chambers. Early monks, emulating Anthony's desire for isolation, hand-carved tiny, austere living quarters into the rock. These were not mere rooms, they were vertical tombs for the living, where a monk would spend days in silent contemplation, pulled up in a basket with meager supplies. The network expanded into a subterranean village. Archaeologists have mapped out ancient refectories, scriptoriums for copying sacred texts, storage rooms for grain and water, and even a hidden bakery, all safe from the blistering desert sun and, more critically, from danger. For the monastery, perched on the edge of the Roman Empire and later facing periodic raids, this underground complex was a fortress. Intricate escape tunnels, some leading miles into the desert wadis, provided routes for evacuation or covert movement. Deep, concealed cisterns captured precious rainwater, ensuring the community could withstand a siege. This was not a place of temporary hiding. It was a permanent, alternative reality, a sunken citadel of faith where monastic life could proceed undisturbed by the turmoil above. Today, visitors to St. Anthony's can still feel this duality. You walk through beautiful surface churches adorned with centuries-old frescoes, yet you can also descend rough stone steps into the cool, silent dark of the original cells. The air grows still, the world's noise vanishes, and you stand in a space designed for one purpose: to bring a human soul as close to the divine as possible, using the mountain itself as both shield and sanctuary. This living monastery proves that the most powerful hidden structures are not always lost to time. Some remain in use, their original purpose of sacred retreat echoing through the rock for over 1,600 years. That profound desire for a direct connection to the divine finds its most concentrated point in a single, hallowed rock. Inside the dome of the rock in Teotihuacan, Jerusalem, beneath the shimmering gold and intricate mosaics, lies the foundation stone, the very heart of the Temple Mount. And directly under that stone, accessed by a narrow staircase, is a small, natural cave known by two powerful names, the Well of Souls and the Pit of the Shetia. This is not a constructed chamber, but a cavity formed in the bedrock, its walls rough and ancient. For Muslims, it is Bir al-Arwa, the Well of Souls. Tradition holds that this is where the spirits of the dead gather to pray, their voices rising like water in a well, a place where the prayers of the living and the dead meet at the world's spiritual axis. For Jews, it is the Pit of the Shetia, meaning foundation. In rabbinic law, this stone is the navel of the world, the first solid material to emerge from the primordial waters of creation, the plug from which all earthly land unfurled. It was upon this rock, Jewish tradition states, that the Ark of the Covenant rested in the Holy of Holies of the ancient temples. The cave beneath it is seen as the gateway to the subterranean waters of Tehom, the deep abyss. The stone itself, pierced by a small hole, allows one to peer down into that darkness, a visceral connection to the very beginning and the great deep. These converging beliefs create an almost overwhelming density of meaning in one confined space. The cave is also shrouded in tales of hidden passageways. Legends across faiths speak of secret tunnels radiating from the Well of Souls, leading to places of judgment, to other sacred sites, or serving as escape routes for prophets and kings. These stories, whether metaphorical or based on lost physical realities, emphasize the cave's role as a node in a vast, invisible network of spiritual power. Its significance extends to the end of days in Abrahamic eschatology. For many Christians and Muslims, this site is intimately linked with final judgment. Some Islamic traditions identify the rock as the place from which the angel Israfil will sound the trumpet to resurrect the dead. certain Christian apocalyptic visions connected to the final battles and the coming of a new Jerusalem. So this quiet cave, cool and shadowed, becomes the ultimate paradox, a place of origin and ending, of silence and gathered voices, of solid stone and the terrifying generative waters below. It is a physical anchor for the world's creation story and the focal point for its final transformation, a hidden chamber where the deepest past and the most distant future collapse into a single sacred point of rock. That profound link between sacred relic and secret sanctuary is not just legend, it has a physical, brick-lined reality. During major renovation work in the 1980s at the Temple of the Tooth, workers made a startling discovery hidden within the thick foundation walls of the main shrine complex. While repairing water damage, they uncovered a carefully constructed, arched subterranean passageway built from ancient brick and mortar leading away from the temple's inner sanctum. This was not a natural fissure or a modern utility line, but a deliberate, hidden corridor sealed for who knows how many centuries. The passage ran horizontally, burrowing into the earth beneath the temple grounds, its direction suggesting a path leading toward the nearby royal palace complex, or perhaps into the jungle-clad hills that cradle the city. Its discovery sent a ripple of excitement through archaeologists and temple historians. Here was tangible proof of the ancient chronicles, a physical artery of the temple's hidden circulatory system. But its precise purpose remains an active debate. The most practical theory is that it served as an emergency escape route for the relic's guardians. In the event of a sudden attack that breached the temple's main defenses, priests could have used this concealed tunnel to spirit the sacred tooth away to a prearranged safe house or a hidden mountain monastery, vanishing from the very heart of the besieged complex. Alternatively, it could have been a discreet utility corridor, allowing for the secret movement of supplies, water, or even waste without disrupting the sacred ceremonies above. Yet the most intriguing possibility is that it was a ritual pathway. In esoteric Buddhist traditions, certain powerful ceremonies, especially those for protection of the nation, might require processions that symbolically move the relic's power through the earth, connecting different nodes of spiritual and royal authority in a hidden circuit. The tunnel's destination is the ultimate clue, but it remains unknown. The passage was explored only for a short distance before being sealed again, both for structural safety and out of deep respect for the sanctity of the site. To follow it to its end would require invasive excavation beneath one of Buddhism's most venerated temples, an act unlikely to ever be sanctioned. So this brick corridor stands as a perfect metaphor for the temple's enduring mystery, a confirmed hidden structure that answers one question while posing a deeper one. It proves that even a World Heritage Site, studied and revered for centuries, still holds physical secrets in its bones. Silent tunnels that whisper of contingency plans, forged in an age when faith required not just devotion, but a meticulously planned escape. Deep within the pyramid of Kukulkan, a secret lies in wait beneath the stone. For decades, the iconic stepped temple at Chichen Itza was admired for its astronomical precision, the way the equinox sun casts a serpent of shadow slithering down its northern staircase. But the pyramid's true foundation was not stone, it was water. Using a non-invasive technique called electrical resistivity tomography, which maps underground structures by measuring how easily electricity passes through the earth, scientists discovered a staggering void. Directly beneath the pyramid's base, at a depth of about 20 meters, lies a large, water-filled sinkhole known as a cenote. This was not a small pocket, but a cavernous chamber roughly 35 meters long, with a depth of over 20 meters of water. For the Maya, this was no geological accident, it was the entire point. Cenotes were sacred portals to Xibalba, the watery and perilous underworld. By constructing their most important temple directly over one, the Maya of Chichen Itza were building a direct spiritual conduit, anchoring their world to the realm of gods and ancestors. The pyramid did not just sit on the earth. It acted as a monumental plug, a regulator for the cosmic forces bubbling up from below. This discovery forces us to reinterpret every detail of the structure above. The pyramid's famous acoustics, where a clap at its base produces an echo that mimics the chirp of the sacred Quetzal bird, might not be a happy accident. Some researchers propose the sound waves could be interacting with the massive water-filled cavity beneath, the chamber acting as a natural resonator that shapes the echo into something otherworldly. Even the pyramid's alignment takes on new meaning. Its orientation and the play of light and shadow during the equinox may have been designed not just for celestial observation, but as a symbolic bridge between the heavens above and the watery underworld below, completing a vertical axis of the cosmos in one breathtaking monument. The Pyramid of Kukulkan, therefore, transforms from a solitary temple into the central component of a giant cosmological instrument. It is a device built to harness and mediate between the three realms, with its hidden, water-filled heart beating silently in the dark, a perpetual reminder that for the Maya, the source of all life and the destination of all souls was always just beneath their feet. The silent cenote beneath Chichen Itza connects us to a world where water and worship were inseparable. But on the rocky Mediterranean island of Malta, a different kind of mystery was carved, not over water, but directly into the living rock itself. The Hypogeum of Halsafliini is a prehistoric underground temple complex so ancient it defies easy categorization. A three-level labyrinth descending into darkness that was carved over 1,000 years before even the Great Pyramid of Giza was a concept. Discovered by accident in 1902 by construction workers, this is not a cave adapted for use, but a monumental structure painstakingly excavated from solid Globigerina limestone, a sacred architecture in reverse. Its builders, the enigmatic temple culture of Malta, left no written records, only this breathtaking and bewildering subterranean world. The upper level feels like a natural extension of the surface, with large oval chambers that may have served as a communal gathering space. But as you descend, the atmosphere shifts. The middle level is a warren of more refined rooms, smooth-walled and decorated with spirals and red ochre patterns. Some chambers clearly designed as collective burial sites holding the remains of thousands of individuals. Here you find the so-called oracle room, a small chamber with a niche that, when a deep voice is spoken into it, produces a haunting, resonant echo that seems to vibrate through the very stone, a phenomenon that would have felt profoundly supernatural to its creators. The deepest level is the most profound, a hushed and sacred space known as the Holy of Holies. This chamber is carved to eerily mimic the above-ground megalithic temples of Malta, complete with a false doorway and corbelled ceiling, as if the builders sought to recreate their most sacred architecture in the womb of the earth. What was this place for? The sheer number of bones suggests a massive necropolis, a city of the dead. Yet the architectural sophistication, the ritual decorations, and those engineered acoustic properties point just as strongly to a temple, a place of ceremony and oracle. The most compelling theory is that it was both, a sacred site where the boundaries between life, death, and the spirit world were intentionally blurred. The echoing chambers could have been used by a priestly class to project voices, creating the illusion of spirits speaking from the walls during initiation rites or funeral rituals. The descent through the three levels might have symbolized a journey into the underworld and back, a transformative experience for the living that honored the dead. The Hypogeum stands as a unique paradox, a buried temple that mirrors the ones in the sunlight above, a place where architecture, acoustics, and human belief were fused into one unforgettable experience, leaving us with a silent stone question mark over 6,000 years old. High on its rock in the heart of Lhasa, The Potala Palace is a fortress of faith, a mountain of white and red walls that seems to scrape the sky. For centuries, it was the winter palace of the Dalai Lamas, the very seat of Tibetan Buddhist spiritual and political power. While pilgrims circle its perimeter and tourists marvel at its golden tombs and endless chapels, the palace guards its most profound secrets in the opposite direction, down in the ancient, maze-like foundations known as the Dragon King's Palace. This is the realm of the Naga, the serpentine water deities of the earth, and it feels entirely separate from the gilded world above. Here, the corridors are low and dark, hewn from the living rock of the hill itself. The air is cool and still, carrying the scent of old earth and butter lamps. These lower depths are a labyrinth of functional mystery, housing massive storerooms for ceremonial grain and butter, ancient armories, and spaces traditionally described as dungeons, though their use was likely more for storage and detention than torment. Most intriguing are the simple, cell-like rooms carved into the rock, used for deep, solitary meditation by monks seeking the most profound isolation. But the legends that swirl around the Dragon King's palace speak of passages that go far beyond the palace walls. Oral histories and old texts whisper of a network of secret tunnels, some said to stretch for miles through the Himalayan foothills. These were not myths for adventure, but practical spiritual arteries. They were allegedly used by High Lamas for clandestine travel, allowing them to move unseen between the Potala and remote meditation caves, or other key monasteries like the Teotihuacan temple in the Old City. In a land where political winds could shift violently, these tunnels offered security and continuity, a way for the spiritual leadership to remain connected and safe. Today, the full extent of these tunnels remains shrouded in mystery. The lower sections of the Potala are structurally delicate and rarely open to the public, preserving their secrets out of necessity as much as tradition. What we are left with is a powerful image, a palace that soars toward heaven but is anchored by a hidden chthonic root system, a literal underground network that sustained its spiritual life, reminding us that the highest forms of power often depend on the deepest, most concealed foundations. Walking the narrow path of the Scavi is a journey through a silent, sunken city. The air is cool and still, thick with the weight of history pressing down from the basilica above. Among the row of Roman mausoleums, one stands out for its vivid and unexpected art, the so-called Mausoleum of the Egyptians. Its walls are alive with color, frescoes that have survived nearly 2,000 years in this perfect darkness. You see scenes of Egyptian deities, like the falcon-headed Horus, alongside classic Roman motifs. This fusion was not unusual in cosmopolitan Rome, a testament to the empire's vast cultural exchange. The family buried here likely had trade connections to Alexandria, and they chose to adorn their eternal home with symbols they believed offered protection in the afterlife, a blend of two ancient worlds on a single wall. The archaeologists who mapped this necropolis faced a delicate forensic puzzle. Their work was not just about uncovering art, but about reading the subtle language of belief etched into the very stone. Differentiating a pagan burial from an early Christian one here rarely involved finding grand crosses or statues. Instead, they looked for the quiet clues. A pagan tomb might feature an inscription dedicated to the Manes, the spirits of the dead, or depict the deceased at a banquet in the afterlife. An early Christian burial, however, was often marked by profound simplicity and hope. The archaeologists found tiles with scratched symbols, a fisherman, a shepherd, or the famous ichthys, the fish, an acronym for Jesus Christ, Son of God, Savior. They uncovered prayers etched in Greek, invoking Christ for the soul of the departed. These were not public declarations of faith, but private, heartfelt expressions of a belief that was still dangerous to profess openly. The graves themselves told a story, Christian burials were simple inhumations, rejecting the pagan practice of cremation in belief of bodily resurrection. The emotional power of this place crystallizes as you approach the end of the buried street. The path leads you directly to a small, unadorned space beneath the soaring dome of St. Peter's, directly under the high altar where the Pope celebrates Mass. Here, you stand before that simple first-century grave and the red wall covered in those early graffiti prayers. The sensory contrast is overwhelming. Above, the roar of 1,000 pilgrims, the scent of incense, the glitter of Michelangelo's mosaics. Below, only the sound of your own breath, the smell of damp earth and old stone, the faint scratch marks of faith made in secret. You are standing at the literal intersection of two worlds, the public, triumphant church of marble and gold, and the private, persecuted church of hope and whispers. This hidden necropolis does not contradict the splendor above. It grounds it. It suggests that the greatest monuments of faith are not built on empty ground, but are often rooted in the quiet, courageous convictions of ordinary people, whose final resting place became, centuries later, the foundation stone for something they could never have imagined. This discovery of the water-filled void is not just a revelation, it is a profound and immediate crisis for preservation. The massive cenote beneath the pyramid creates a constant, hidden threat of geological instability. The entire structure, every ton of its limestone blocks, rests on a ceiling of rock spanning that submerged chamber. Over centuries, water erosion from below, combined with the immense weight from above, could create a catastrophic collapse, swallowing the pyramid into the earth from which it symbolically emerged. This presents archaeologists and engineers with an agonizing ethical dilemma. The scientific urge is overwhelming to send remotely operated vehicles or even divers into that dark water to map its contours, to search its silt floor for the ritual offerings that almost certainly lie there, treasures thrown into the sacred portal over centuries of worship. Such an exploration could confirm the pyramid's direct ritual use and reveal artifacts of unimaginable value. But the risk is existential. Any drilling operation to create an access point, however small, could weaken that critical stone ceiling. The vibrations from equipment, the pressure changes from penetrating the water table, even the disturbance of the water itself, could trigger a chain reaction that destabilizes the entire foundation. The choice is stark: to know the secret and risk destroying the monument, or to protect the monument and forever remain in ignorance of what the cenote holds. This tension is not unique to Chichen Itza, but it is here felt most acutely. At the nearby sacred cenote, a vast natural sinkhole at the site, dredging operations in the early 20th century recovered a fortune in gold, jade, and human remains, confirming ancient accounts of sacrificial offerings to the rain god Chak. But that cenote was open to the sky. Its exploration did not threaten a building above it. The cenote under Kukulkan is a sealed, pressurized component of the architecture itself. To understand its significance, we must look to other Maya sites where water and structure merged. At the great city of Palenque, as we discussed, evidence suggests engineers may have channeled water under Pakal's tomb. At the site of Zibilchal Tun, a temple aligns perfectly so that the rising sun on the equinox shines directly down into a cenote. The Maya worldview was fundamentally hydraulic, seeing caves and cenotes as the breathing points of the living earth, the dwelling places of gods and ancestors. Placing their most important pyramid directly over such a portal was the ultimate act of cosmological engineering. It means the Pyramid of Kukulkan was never just a calendar in stone or a temple to the feathered serpent. It was a colossal pressure valve, a spiritual instrument designed to communicate with and perhaps even regulate the chaotic, generative forces of the underworld. Every equinox, as the shadow serpent descended, it was not just marking time, it was symbolically uniting the celestial order with the watery chaos below. performing a ritual of balance that used the entire landscape as its stage. The hidden cenote forces us to see the pyramid not as a solitary object, but as the visible tip of a sacred iceberg, its true purpose and power forever anchored in the dark, silent water beneath our feet, a secret we may wisely choose to leave undisturbed. From secret cities to symbolic rivers, the sheer diversity of these 25 structures is staggering. We have walked through functional metropolises like Derinkuyu, built for survival, and traced the escape tunnels beneath temples of the sacred tooth, engineered for preservation. We have stood over engineered cenotes that served as spiritual portals, and in rough-hewn caves that became chapels for secret gods. Each one, whether a flooded labyrinth in Egypt or a bone-lined ossuary in Paris, reveals a unique facet of the human story. Yet beneath this incredible variety runs a powerful, common thread. Across every continent and culture, humanity has repeatedly chosen to build its most sacred places, not just upward toward the heavens, but deliberately, profoundly, downward into the earth. This was not merely a practical solution for unstable ground or a clever hiding spot, though it served those purposes brilliantly. It was a fundamental expression of belief. To build down was to connect with the generative power of the earth itself, to access the underworld realms of gods and ancestors, to create a direct line to the source of life, death, and rebirth. It was the ultimate act of reverence and protection, a way to shield what was most precious, be it a relic, a community, or a king's journey to the afterlife, by entrusting it to the silent, enduring embrace of the ground. So what do these hidden layers ultimately say about the civilizations that carved them? They tell us that our ancestors saw the earth not as an inert foundation, but as a living, sacred partner. Their greatest monuments were dialogues with the deep, a testament to the idea that true power and mystery have always resided just beneath the surface, waiting in the dark. Which of these 25 hidden worlds resonates most deeply with you? Was it the cosmic scale of the cenote under Chichen Itza, the intimate faith etched in the Vatican's graffiti, or the sheer survival instinct of the underground cities? Let us know in the comments below, and subscribe to continue these journeys into history's most captivating